Alright, starting off here with a Geekbench 5 CPU test for the single core. As you can see, the Mac Studio with the M1 Max is coming in at 1790, but is very close to that of the M1 standard Mac Mini with a 1740. And as you can see, the Intel counterparts are significantly slower. Alright, moving on here, we have now a multi-core CPU test with Geekbench 5, and we can see this is now where we notice the Mac Studio with the M1 Max pulling ahead quite significantly with a score of 12,652. The M1 Mac Mini is 7394, and then as you can see, the Intel counterparts are of course significantly slower, but that Intel MacBook Pro, as you can see right there, is about half that score of the Mac Studio with the M1 Max. Alright, next we have a CPU stress test using Cinebench, and this is a 10-minute test that is run basically consecutively over and over, and we are getting again a very impressive score on the Mac Studio with a score of 12,390. The M1 standard on the Mac Mini is 7704, and then we see the Intel counterparts are also within the 7,000 range as well. Okay, now moving on to a bit of a gaming test, and this has been done via the GFX bench with a 1440p UHD game benchmark. And again, we see huge gains here with the M1 Max Mac Studio with the 24-core GPU. Again, base model, coming in at 245 frames per second, which is insane. The Mac Mini M1 is 69 frames a second. Intel Mac Mini 13 frames a second, which is very abysmal, and that Intel MacBook Pro with the Vega 20 is not too bad at 48 frames per second. Next here, with a little bit of a quick speed test with the SSD. So again, the Mac Studio is a huge improvement with over 5 gigabytes a second, or 5420 megabytes per second. And then you see all the three other competitors here are within the mid to high 2000 range. Alright, now on to a photo export test. Now this is a little bit more centric to, again, my personal workflow. This is done using 150 megabyte Nikon D850 photos, raw photos, in Lightroom Classic. So again, you see pretty significant gains with the Mac Studio coming in with a final time of 1:29 seconds for the export, which is really good. Then the M1 Mac Mini is 4:10, Intel Mac Mini 6:02, and the Intel MacBook Pro at 3:07. Again, that Intel MacBook Pro, as we see here, is pretty close to the Mac Studio, but the Mac Studio is obviously still quite a bit faster in nearly all aspects. Alright, now into some video editing. So this is a 1-minute stabilization of a 1080p H.264 video clip. So again, the speeds here, as you can see, are insanely fast. So the Mac Studio comes in at 4 seconds, which is absolutely ridiculous. That is super fast. But the M1 Mac Mini is not far off at a second slower at 5 seconds. The Intel Mac Mini obviously is very slow at 38 seconds, and then again, that Intel MacBook Pro is not far off at 7 seconds. Okay, so here again, this is another thing that's pretty centric to my personal workflow. This is a Final Cut Pro video export with a 7-minute H.264 1080p 60 frames per second video. Again, I do not use or primarily shoot and edit 4K videos very often, so I primarily typically am editing 1080p 60 frames a second for my personal business and workflow. But anyway, as you can see here, for this particular export, we're getting 53 seconds on the Mac Studio, which is very, very good. M1 Mac Mini at 720, Intel Mac Mini very slow at 10 minutes 4 seconds. And then again though, that Intel MacBook Pro with the 8-core processor and the Vega 20 graphics is not far behind at a minute 46.